Hello, everybody. My name is Lee Osler. I'm coming to you from the great state of Washington in the United States. This is our weekly Asea 5 broadcast. We welcome you from all over the world, wherever you're coming in from. As you do come in, those of you who are alive with us, just get in the chat room and let us know where you're coming from. We're looking forward to a great conversation tonight. This is the Asea 5, but tonight we're 7 in number. We're going to be featuring some great athletes, so there'll be some discussion on athletes. And before we go there, we just want to start off with a disclaimer that we are not a medical company. We are a supplement company. Asea has a great product that assists with cellular health, and we do not diagnose. We are not treating medical diseases, and we won't talk about medical diseases specifically. And tonight, we're going to be focusing on a lot about athletes, athletic activities and so forth. And we're on the heels of a great athletic event. I believe it was in Cozumel, and we have some returning champions there. And so I'd just like to welcome Jim and Ann Glenn from San Antonio, the co-hosts. We'll excuse our beloved Maureen, Dr. Maureen Hayes, who's with her family tonight, and we hope that she does well, but she'll be with us next week. We also have Jerry and Marsha White, also from the great state of Washington in Spokane. You can wave to us. And we appreciate having them on, and we're going to have them introduce themselves and tell a little bit. We also have the famous Dexter Yates, a great Asea athlete, and Shawn Burke, who holds a great coaching position in her life and others. And so we'll be bringing them on. I'd like to turn this to Jerry White. Jerry, you're kind of our beloved Papa Smurf here in this organization, and we love to have your wisdom. And of course, you know the science of this great product inside and outside. Maybe you could just jump on and introduce to all the new people who have joined us from all over the world who you are, briefly, maybe why you got into this, and then you can make some introductions there to our athletic group and go from there.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you, Jim and Ann, for this concept and being consistent and trying to help us get all of this information to the world. I'm Jerry White, and I have the honor and privilege to be the husband to Marsha, and she's kind of going to be the star along with Dexter tonight. But together as our family, we're Ambassador Diamonds in Asea. We came in to this through a couple of major events. One of them was the revelation that a lot of stuff that I knew in medicine and in physical therapy and in coaching changed. And it changed dramatically with the concept and discovery of how the cells communicate internally and between one another, a new science. I was introduced to that by a housewife from Spokane, Washington. And she and one from Boise, Idaho, started this whole kind of movement in our household. They called up and said, there's this new thing, and it just sounds kind of like almost implausible, but we went and saw it. It was amazing. And we'd like to have you come down and tell us if it's even possible. Well, I had never heard of it before and got the opportunity to go down. And eventually Marsha and I went together to Utah to witness something really interesting. And it was sort of the discovery of this communication that cells use to operate on a daily basis. And that with the advent of a new product technology called Redox signaling or Redox signaling supplement from Asea, that we could re-top off, if you will, or put to bring back up to a pre-existing state the amount of these things you had in your system, and through that process, allow the cells in your body to start to do what they used to do when you were better. And that portends to thousands of different things. You just think about your body has to take in information from the outside, adapt to what the world is supplying. And if we couldn't do that adaptation, we wouldn't last very long. And as we get older, we begin to lose these. And we found that as we started to add them back, many different things changed where we started to remember how to work when we were younger. So tonight's kind of look at Asea is what it can do above and beyond people going from sick to less sick, or from sick to an absence of symptoms. We're going to be looking at this. Since you have a chance to live life at a much higher level, let's pull the trigger and live life at a much, much higher level. So to do that, we're going to be honoring a couple of athletes, and it's going to be an interesting story to follow. It's one that has provided many of us with a tremendous amount of awe and respect. And it's a showcase for what this Asea can do when you want to take it well beyond. In our household, that meant that there was a sort of a set of sequences that occurred. We enjoy being. We got to move, and we've been doing triathlons. I used to do them years and years and years ago. Then it was picked up by Marsha about 14 years ago, and they're going to tell you the tale of how we ran through that. And then Marsha was kind of hanging around with a couple of people in Asea that were really good at it. And we all went to the same gym together, and then she got talked into something completely nuts. And they're going to talk about that and how it happened. And it was through these people like Shawn, Burke, and Dexter and Marsha that a lot of things transpired. So we're going to talk about those things. We're going to take a look at how Asea plays in all of that, and we want to welcome you all to this story because it's going to be a fun one. So back to you.
Well, Marsha, let's come to you first. Would you compliment what your husband just mentioned and maybe brag on yourself? Tell us where you were recently and what you did.
Well, with the persuasion of Dexter over there, during COVID, she started stretching me, and we started riding together every Wednesday, and she'd keep putting a little bug in my ear. And so anyway, the moral of the story is we went to Cozumel 2 weeks ago, and I completed my first Ironman Triathlon, which is 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike, followed by a 26.2 mile in my case, walk, run. So for a total of 140.6 miles in one day. So as my daughter said, it's kind of, it takes longer, at least for me, than she likes to be awake in a day. So it's a challenge, and it felt pretty great to accomplish it.
And how long were you in preparation for that?
Dexter first put the full, well, I all my life, I'm not much of a runner. I had a lot of issues that were not conducive to doing a lot of long endurance athletics. I had some feet that are pretty messed up. I had a back that was always talking to me. I was always looking for the chair that I could, lean against or something. And I had some breathing issues that made anything other than a flat back bike ride and running just not really even a possibility. And so about, like Jerry was saying, I think it was about 14 years ago when I was 49, I got talked into doing a women's sprint triathlon, which is just kind of dabbling in things. And at that point in time, my kids would ride their bike along with me to sing to me to keep me distracted because I just couldn't breathe very well. Women would stop and say, "Oh, do you need my inhaler?" And so it was just something to keep me fit. And then fast forward about, let's see, the years get messed up with COVID, but when COVID started, whenever that was that 2020? The spring, I think Shawn started talking to me about doing a half Ironman. And that was like the craziest thing I ever thought of. I think he would probably say, I said, "Are you kidding?" and just kind of laughed in his face at the thought of doing that. And because of COVID, I did end up signing up for that. They talked me into it. I thought, what the heck? I might as well try it. If you don't have any big, crazy goals in your life, then what are you going to do? Sit and stagnate for the rest of your life? So I signed up for it, but that got canceled with COVID. And so Dexter and I were riding all summer. She let me start riding with her in about July, and we'd go out every Wednesday to this trail we have here that's just gorgeous. And she worked me my way up into some rides that I thought I would never ride 100 miles. And she said, oh, yes, you will. And then by August, she was saying, maybe you should try a full Ironman with me. And so I was crazy. And I said, yeah. And that was a year ago, November. And I didn't quite complete the distance, went 137.6 miles of the 140. And my body just said time to quit. So I had to go back this year and redeem myself. So that's the long answer, but really thinking about an Ironman distance, the full distance, was probably, a year and a few months of training specifically for that goal.
That's just amazing. I want to kick it over to Shawn. If you could come on, you're kind of the coach here. Maybe you could chime in and introduce Dexter. You know her probably is better than most of us, except her colleague in crime, Marsha. But maybe you could introduce her and just kind of give your perspective on what this was going on.
So Dexter, I met Dexter 7 years ago.
2015.
Yeah, 2015. And I had my training facility at that time, and Dexter came into my facility, and she was 69, right?
Yeah.
69. And she came up to me and said, she just walked in and she said, hey, my name's Dexter Yates and I want to do an Ironman. And I said, oh, okay. And she says,
not all you said.
yeah, well, that's true. I got to keep it political. I just kind of went, okay. And then she said, no, really, I want to do an Ironman. And I said, okay. And Dexter at that time, and I know Dexter well enough so I can say this in front of her. She was 30 pounds overweight. She was trying to train for an Ironman race. And she would have to train one day and then take 2 days off, train one day, take 2 days off. And I said, Dexter, this isn't going to work. If you're going to train like this, that's not going to work. And she's like, okay, well, you just tell me what to do, when to do it, how to do it, and I'll do it. And so I said, okay. So she started coming to my gym. We started doing strength training. And that's when I introduced Asea to Dexter. And she just, she looked at the pouch and she says, what is it? And I said, doesn't matter, just drink it. She's like, okay, that sounds good to me. And so she started drinking it, and we started working with different formulas on how to take Asea. I think we started off at 2 ounces twice a day, and that wasn't working. So we went to 4 ounces twice a day. And now we're up to, she drinks, I think, 2 pouches a day, at least 2 pouches a day now. And we implement that into her training. And fast forward, so after that, she started training longer. She went from 5 hours a week to 5 hours, or she was trained up to 25 hours a week at 69 years old. She went and did her first Ironman in Colorado, and she did that race and qualified for the World Championships. And then, so she's been on, how many Ironmans have you done since being on Asea? Like 12?
A lot.
More than that.
A lot.
13. 13
Ironmans since being on Asea. She's qualified for the World Championships every year since she's been on Asea. She is she won the World Championships. And Dexter is 76 years old. And Cosmo, well, the funny story, and I'll let her tell about Cosmo, is every time she's gone to Cosmo to do that race, she's entered the race, she wins the race, and they have to make a special trophy for her because they never think anybody her age is going to finish the race. So they always have to make a trophy for her. So every year she finishes, but they don't have a trophy for her. But she'll tell you a story this year about it. Anyway, here's Dexter Yates, 76 years old, and I have more to say about her later, but go ahead. You're on, Star.
Asea really made a major difference. I was able to do so much more training and getting stronger and more fit, and just feeling the joy. It was like, I'm going to go play. I'm going to go do a 100-mile bike ride. Not, oh man, it's going to be 100 miles today. I anticipated it. My whole ability to do what had to be done, it made it fun, which before I had to kind of grab myself by the scruff of the neck and drag me into it. And then now it's like, oh man, I can go do 100 miles today, or I can swim 5,000 yards, or whatever it is presented for the day. And it's just brought so much joy to my life. And one of the things that I noticed, didn't notice it right away because it's not something that jumps out at you. But after, maybe probably the second year, I was like, wow, I haven't been getting sick. Prior to that, I would train, I would get worn down, I would end up with a sinus infection or just something that would lay me up for a few days. And after a couple of years, I was looking back and I'm thinking, whoa, I don't want to jinx myself, but I have not been experiencing those sinus infections, those colds, those sick days. And one of the things that Marsha and I were talking about today was that on social media, there is a site that is a lot of the participants at Cozumel are on that and communicating like, hey, I'm here in Cozumel, I need a bike pump or whatever. There's a lot of conversations. And after the race, for the next 2 or 3 days after the race, there was just one report after the next of people getting sick and having cold, sinus infections, flu-like symptoms, and all of this. And here, Marsha and I, a couple of the older, which would be considered possibly the more fragile participants, both of us just came home and were like, of course, Marsha, she's a little bit crazy. She goes to SeaWorld with her grandchildren and has a birthday party and all this. But both of us were going, whoa, we dodged a bullet there. I wonder how that happened. So it was pretty amazing to see how many people. Now, one of the things that was a contributing factor that neither one of us have actually mentioned, the race, it was raining the entire day. And we were riding our bikes 112 miles in torrential rain. So
it was a sheet. You couldn't see a thing.
It was taxing to everybody's systems. And yet, of course, Marsha and I were definitely drinking our Asea before, during, and after the race. But to see all of the illness that was coming out of that from on the social media, we were just like, whoa, something went right.
So I want to ask a question. You say you take it, before, during, and after. So you're an athlete. I mean, you're sitting there at age 76. You take away all my excuses. I'm just like, I'm sitting here like, I need to go repent or something. It's like, get off the stick. But but what, when you say you take more, so as an athlete, you're training and you talked about your normal usage, but I know this is a question many people are going to have is on the day of the event, are you like doubling or tripling, or are you doing it during the race? How do you process that?
I'm gonna break in there a little bit just because she's an Asea sponsored athlete, so it's hard for her to say exactly how many ounces she's taking a day, but I'm not.
Okay. Thank you for keeping us safe.
So on race day, in the morning, it's all about consistency too. You can't just all of a sudden say it's race day, I'm going to take a whole bunch of Asea. You've got to be doing it along as you go. But on race day, we'll take it in the morning. Probably I'm guessing that she probably drank a pouch in the morning. Similar, I drank a pouch in the morning, and then you have in your on the run and on the bike, you get what's called a special needs bag, and you can pick up in this particular race, like after halfway or 2/3 of the way through the race, you can choose when it is. You can pull in and get your special needs bag. And I know I had, and I'm sure she had in there, another pouch. Those pouches are great to tuck away in there. And I was able to, you drink some of that then and stick it in your pocket in your bike jersey and drink it when you get done. And then when you come to transition between the bike and the run, you have another bag full of, your running things. And in that will be another pouch. And then again, on your run, there's another special needs bag that you can have a pouch in. And then, of course, afterwards, right away, you want to be drinking it afterwards. And then even to the point where in that particular race, as Dexter was saying, it was very, very wet on the bike ride. So for 112 miles, your feet are soaked, even to the point where there was puddles that were, yay deep that we had to ride through, so your feet are going all the way underwater every time your pedal's going around. So, your feet are pretty soggy. And between that and then running, and there's moisture in the, from people's water or whatever, the trail gets wet and your feet get wet there. So even after the race, Jerry took Asea, when we got back to the hotel room, put it on a wet towel and put it on my feet, on the bottoms of my feet, because we were a little concerned that maybe I would lose the skin on the bottom of my feet, and had no problem. It just was, it was
Also,
a really good that.
Can I break in here a second too? Because you're talking about these various bags that we have access to during the course of the race. For me, it was for both of us, it was over 16 hours of going as hard as you can go. And that is, you have to consider that you've gotten up several hours before the start. So it's a very long day. But also in those bags that we have access to, we both had the Renew 28 that you put on your feet before, when you're changing your socks. And I had a situation where I got chafed under my arm, and putting the Renew on that helped that to heal up as well. So it's not just the drink that has helped us through. It's also the other products which we use on a regular basis.
Yeah, and the serum.
Yes.
Dexter's taught me to have an emergency little like a fanny pack on my waist, and the serum goes in there. And
it's a tiny little tube.
It's just, because it's tiny, it's concentrated, and it's a great boost when you have, maybe a little cramp or something that's not real comfortable, to just slather that on. And, and afterwards on blisters, I had a few blisters on my feet, but the skin never broke, never anything, because right afterwards you start putting on the Renew and the Renew 28 and the serum. And then you're drinking, extra the week afterwards to help with your recovery. I started thinking I didn't have any recovery days, as Dexter was saying. I went from the race on Sunday to Monday was, kind of a recovery day pack. Tuesday, we traveled 15 hours. Wednesday was surprise my granddaughter for her 4th birthday and do that. Thursday was Thanksgiving. Friday was go to SeaWorld. Saturday was birthday parties for the 4-year-old. And, that was my recovery week. I could never have done that without having the Redox on board.
Hey, Jerry, can we have you chime in here as our resident expert? Tell us, there's people in here maybe that are not familiar with what this blue pouch is. And they're describing their relative success, compared to others or them in a previous year, as to why this helped them through this. Could you help explain the science, or at least from an athletic point of view? What is this doing for these athletes?
Great question. As a coach and physical therapist, this is an area of tremendous interest for me, and was one of the things that really brought me to the table and said, okay, let's find out what this thing is all about. Keep in mind that as your body goes through its daily activities, the first thing you do with that first cell that makes you has got the full complement of the DNA that's there. It begins to split and figures out that certain parts need to be made and all of that sort of stuff. And all this magic goes on while you're developing for that first 9 months. Later, we start to lose the ability to even sort of fix it fast enough. And we started to wonder in my profession as a physical therapist, why is it that it takes longer and longer and longer as you get older and older to kind of get your zip back and to try to get your feet back under you and to keep these things moving. And it turns out that over the course of your life, you start to lose a series of sort of indicator molecules or these special molecules that come from activity, breathing, building the energy that makes burning the food that you take in. And while you're doing that process, your body makes a series of very special molecules called reducers and oxidizers. We put that together for redox. And those molecules, because of age and stress and environment, we start to lose from the very moment that you're born. And over the course of time, by the time you're in your 70s and 80s, you might have lost 80% of those. Well, that leads to some really interesting difficulties because it reduces the communication that occurs that is necessary for you to figure out how to fix your body. So here's one of the marvelous things about these two athletes. The time frames are kind of crazy how fast their bodies adapted to what they were exposing them to. Coming from both of them, what would have been pretty good activity for most people, but then into exceptional activity. It requires that your system gets stressed. The cells have to take in that information that it is stressed. And then the cell has to say, well, if you're going to continue doing that, we need to build a cell that's stronger, better. Now, normally with aging, you just continue to decline, but with exercise, you go the opposite direction. You actually can take in the information, process the information, make better, stronger cells, and it takes time. The problem is it takes longer and longer time. Little kids do it really quickly. Well, as the scientists started putting things together, we started to determine those little kids doing that very quickly had a host, many more of these redox signaling molecules than we have when we're older. So as we reapply it back to the system now can turn on the genes that monitor what's going on in your world. As it turns them back on or turns them up or makes them more aware, those genes can talk to one another, and then those talk to other genes. And through that process starts the whole process of saying, what did we used to do? Well, we used to build these better. We used to improve on this system over here. And it literally takes in the information that's coming from the outside, your cells do, and then it adapts. Well, wouldn't it be interesting? We believe we've now found the language tools that the cells use to do that communication. We simply add them back in the form of redox signaling supplement and let the body do what it was designed to do. In fact, not only designed to do, but used to do when you were younger. So think about it for just a second, and then I'll pass it right back because I love this story that they're telling, where you could take Marsha, who comes from doing some of these athletic events that would take an hour and a half or sometimes up to 2.5 hours in these triathlons, and stretching that to 10 times that much in a matter of months. That's almost completely infeasible for somebody that's over 50, 60 years old without some sort of remembrance or resistance to go back to what you used to do. So to me, it's astounding from a physical therapy standpoint, from an athletic standpoint, to even do what they've done so far, and then to do it so well and to bounce back. So that's kind of an elementary way to talk about it. But if you lack something and you add it back and the body can take it and make you better, why not?
That's a great summary. Hey, Shawn, you were going to talk earlier and tell some more stories about Dexter. So you've done these Ironmans, you've done many yourself, and you're a consummate athlete in training. Maybe you could add to what Jerry just said. Give us the more of that science side and how it's impacted you, and then toss it back to Dexter, because I want to hear more of her genius.
Well, I think we should hear about Dexter's race.
Yes.
And then I can talk about it because Dexter actually killed it. So did Marsha. They both went faster than they did last year. So I'm going to let Dexter tell her about her race.
Let's do that.
And Marsha should talk about her race because she went faster just a year later after doing that. So go ahead.
Well, the conditions were really strange. I think there were a lot of places that the race would have possibly been canceled because of the thunder and the lightning and all of the rain. But, 2,000 of us all stood on the start line and jumped in the ocean and swam. And it was my second fastest swim I have ever done by a minute, which if you're talking race times and stuff, a minute is pretty big to improve, or even though it was a minute slower, the conditions were just perfect for me personally. Then once I got on my bike and started riding, I felt like I had a lot going, and it was kind of fun to be riding in that much rain. As crazy as it sounds, because normally it's like, oh, it's raining, I'll just ride the trainer inside. But to be out there with 2,000 of your best friends on the bike course, and the course was absolutely beautiful. There's a 12-mile stretch where you're right on the coast with that beautiful, I guess they call it Caribbean blue surf. It was just stunning. And you had to kind of, I'm racing and get back to it. But I had my second fastest bike ride also. My situation this past year has been a little bit tough. I lost my beloved husband. So there was a period of time I didn't do as much training as I would normally do. Just making it there and making it to the start line was a big emotional win for me personally. But because of my training deficits that I had gotten myself into, when I got onto the run course, there was a period of time where going through the aid stations, they didn't have water available. They had run out and were replenishing, but there was maybe 3 or 4, maybe as many as 5 miles where I didn't have access to water, which is pretty important at that stage of the day. And so I got to where I just walked and ended up having the longest marathon I've ever done, even though my swim and my bike were the fastest, my marathon was the slowest. But I didn't at any time have any injuries or any physical situations where I thought, I'm in trouble. It was just, I had to just back off on my run, with the lack of water. And also, I'm going to admit it, I had lacked in my training a bit. So, but it's always a thrill to come across the finish line. And when you get an age group win, you can't beat that. I'm not competing with the 20-year-olds. I'm competing with, the older athletes. As it has happened, and Shawn mentioned earlier, there's not very many women in my age group. Worldwide, I think there's maybe 10. So any age group win is a big win when you think of it on a global.
Well, here's an interesting point from a coaching standpoint, but also from me personally, as I do triathlons. First off is that when you're a little kid and you get older, people expect you to go faster. When you're in the age groups after 50, you get older, and now they're saying, I'm going faster. That's opposite of what normally happens. And there's a lot of dynamics to all of this. And so I'll throw it back to Marsha now. I guess Shawn wants you to kind of describe a blow-by-blow for your race.
Well, I'd like to say one thing about Dexter's race in her year too, that an aspect of Redox that we haven't really talked about is she mentioned, that her husband had passed away, and she had some other stressors this year and a lot of stress. And we've know that even just in a normal life, that would maybe make you more prone to being ill, to having some, issues crop up. And she didn't have any physical issues crop up. She wasn't sick this year. She was, still able to train, and her mindset stayed so incredibly strong. I just can't believe the mindset of this woman. And I can't help but think that Asea, and Redox has helped her through those stressful times. And I think that's one area that we often forget about, that Redox can help us in, whether you're doing the stress of the emotional stresses and cleaning out generational homes in her family and the different things that she, had to do this year. It's just amazing what Redox can do to keep your body in balance as you go through there. So I just wanted to point out that part, I think, is a part that we often forget about. And especially as we're going through these crazy times in the world, and people are going through so much additional stress that they usually haven't, that this is an area that Redox can possibly really help out in their lives. As far as my race, I was really excited because I'm an Ironman now, but mine started out really good. Swimming is my kind of my bag. So to have a nice swim course like Cozumel's, it was nice. I was out first in my age group, which is nice to be able to do that without really stressing my body. And
you were distracted last year. Were you distracted this year too?
No, the water was a little bit choppier, so you couldn't see the fish quite as well. Last year, it was just really clear, and you could see all these fish, and it was like, oh, I want to go stop and see them all. This year, they weren't quite as much of a distraction, so that was kind of nice. But and then got on the bike, had a great bike. One thing that's a problem when you're the way you do the swims is you self-seed yourselves by how fast you think you're going to do. So I have to seed myself up with all these young bucks, and the young bucks are behind me too. And so, for example, some of the pros go in the 40 minutes, 45 minutes for their swim. I did a 42-minute swim or 52-minute swim. So I'm ahead of all these young bucks that can ride a bike really fast. So on the bike, one of my challenges was a mindset challenge, is that these fast young bikers are going by me all day long. And I had to just keep telling myself, similar to an Asea business, that, I got to run my race. This is my race. It's not their race. Just do my thing there, and hold back because I'm going to need it for the run. That's not my best thing. And interestingly enough, Dexter and I, we do our, every Wednesday we ride together and do our longer rides together. And interestingly enough, our bike rides in the race were actually only a minute apart. So I guess I'm emulating my mentor there quite well on the bike course too, but I beat her by a minute on that part. But then came the run, and I had some challenges on the run. I was prepared and felt like I was in pretty good shape to go into the run. Had a great first probably 20 miles of the run, was doing pretty well. And then I had some structural issues that I got to work with Shawn this year to help overcome and strengthen in my back, and was put down to doing a walk there those last 6 miles, and really had to pull out all the mindset things I could to get through there. But we did it. I knew I had the time to get through, and got to do that. And the other advantage too, I didn't even bring up, is our son did his first Ironman during this one too. And that was really fun to know he was out there cheering on the course. And Jerry, of course, was there as a Sherpa carrying all our stuff and watching out for all of Dexter and Jacob and I as we're going around, because it was a looped course. But it was definitely, one of those big, crazy goals that you put out there, and I've done it. And now, unfortunately, it's kind of like labor. You forget about the bad parts, and it makes you start thinking, golly, maybe I'd like to do that again. So I probably will do it again, and see if I can just get a little bit better than I did this year.
Well, to paraphrase a great Asea diamond to triple ambassador, Terry Latham, and my first sponsor here in this business, he says, people oftentimes hear the glory, but they don't know the story. And the story here includes a really interesting part that we can take with us in our Asea businesses, and that is when you gather together with people of like minds and you set big, hairy, audacious goals, then there is a bond that carries you through a lot of difficulty. In this case, a tremendous number of hours and miles. And to do something that you can't do by yourself. And the same thing occurs as you begin to start to build your teams. When you get one or two other people to train with, and then you have a set, your distance or an event that you're trying to accomplish, a rank that you're trying to become, something you could never do by yourself. And then you succeed. What happens was that now many people have been inspired by this event, by these two athletes that Shawn sort of planted a seed, and then Dexter not only took the seed, but took a great big watermelon and dropped it on Marsha's head and said, let's go do something really ridiculous.
With a little help from Shawn.
And Shawn too, he was into that game. And what happens then is that greatness comes from people urging each other on, seeing in you more than you see in yourself. And you're going to find that as you gather together in your development, in your businesses. So my son then gets a sense that, you know what, she's not going to give up on this. He kind of had it in the back of his head that he wanted to do it. Ashley down in Texas started to see that Marsha was doing something that stretched herself way beyond. And Ashley was one of those people who it's just a real miracle that she can walk around and be a housewife today. She's not very old, but she was stove up and some really, really bad. And then so she competed in a first ever triathlon and finished it. And many, many other people. And I look at this and I say, I've learned so much from watching these two. I've coached for years, but I have a tendency to forget you first have to do the right things over the right amount of time to show up at the starting line. And so I tended to try to go as fast as I used to go and blew everything up. So I was always at these events with one wing up here or just getting started again because I'm coming off of injury. And I learned from them this way of saying the greatest achievements start by doing it as Dexter taught me. That, Dexter, can you tell the story of how your horse learned how to be a champion in these long events?
Well, no, I learned from my horse to be more accurate.
Okay, so Dexter and I learned from a horse. So.
No, I used to do a sport called endurance racing on horseback, which is horse races of over 50 or 100-mile trails. It's not on a track, it's over mountains and through rivers or what have you. And in training him, I learned that what made him strong and kept him injury-free was lots of, well, what they say, wet saddle blankets, getting him out, working long, slow distance, and just lots and lots of it. And so basically, for working myself, I've learned that I need to do a lot of deep training, lots of long distances. And it's doesn't have to be fast because I'm not doing sprints. I'm doing 2.4 mile swim, 112-mile bike, and a 26.2-mile run, all from the start of the day straight through. No, there's no time to sit down and put your feet up and have a cold one or something. You're going from the time you start till you cross that finish line. So I learned that I needed the lots and lots of to put it another way, wet saddle blankets, just getting out there and sweating through long, steady workouts to get the strength and be able to make it to the finish line.
Now, we have a founder, Vertus Norton, amazing, has set us all on a path based on a concept of building a legacy, something that lasts for a lifetime and on into generations beyond. And some of us have had our sprints in life and had some great successes in short-term things, but now we're trying to set our sights on this legacy that lasts forever. And that's been remarkable in the business building of Asea. Shawn, as a coach, you could see me training and getting injured all the time because I was trying to push at the speeds and the power and the intensity that I was well trained for when I was young and trying to do them in my late 60s. And so parts and pieces would fall off. So this idea of saying, bring the heart rate down, train the heart rate to do something completely different than you're normally accustomed to in your business, put yourself on the track to say, pair up with other people, do things at a rate you can accomplish, keep reminding yourselves of accomplishments one step at a time. So Shawn, how do you take a crazy previous athlete and slow them down enough to be able to change the mindset to do a race that lasts all day instead of one that lasts for maybe 15 minutes? Those are the long ones, 2 or 3 minutes was what I was usually competing. So what's up?
Well, if you look at both Marsha and Dexter's training for Ironman, you're looking at 25 hours of training a week minimum. And so that's a lot of training. So what Redox Molecules is doing is allowing both of these tremendous athletes to train consistently. So that when we talk about detect, repair, and replace, that's a key component with Redox Molecules and with athletes, because they had to train for 25 hours a week for many, many weeks. If they just trained 25 hours for 1 week and then did the race, they wouldn't have finished. So it's the consistency of putting in those quality of training times back to back, which got them to the starting line, which got them to the finish line. And so that's a big component. Dexter uses, she told you she uses the vitamins. She uses, and Marsha does too. So they use the vitamins for nutrition, for those cells that have been, when they replace a cell has to have the proper nutrition in order to function correctly. So the Via source, which is our nutrition source, allows that to happen. The Redox Molecules, the liquid form, allows the athlete, the body, to detect what cell has been broken down or needs to be replaced. So muscle soreness is caused by cell breakdown, our cells that weren't being able to replace. So I can contest, because I know Dexter really well and Marsha too, is that when they go to train 25 hours a week, they're not sore after each training. They may be a little sore, so they take a little bit more Asea. So that consistency of not being sore and training consistently time after time after time is what got Marsha and Dexter to the starting line and got them both doing their personal best in that race. It wasn't a week before the race. It wasn't 2 weeks before the race. It was like Marsha said, I've been doing this for over a year training to make that goal. And when you have someone who's 76 years old like Dexter, who still trains at 25 or plus hours a week and is not sore and is consistent, that's a game changer for any athlete or even weekend warrior to make that. You don't have to be an Ironman competitor to do that. And that's what I have noticed as a coach, is that as a coach, our job is to teach the athletes to train smart, not to get injured, and be consistent. And this product allows us as coaches to put that element in there that never was there before. Even when I was in high school and college, I wish I had this. I wish I would have had this product, because I can guarantee you I'd be somewhere else right now because of that. But, it is what it is. And so, 76 years old, I'm 61. I thought I was going to retire at 59. But now that Dexter's 76, I still got to go for a lot of more years. But I know how to do it right. And the other thing I wanted to bring up too with Dexter and Marsha did too, is a week before the race, is we have them what we call mega dose. In other words, take the product more frequently during that week because they're in a recovery week to get ready for the race. And so instead of taking it 1 in the morning and afternoon and evening, I have Dexter take it more often during the day, during that week before the race, so that their body is fully recovered before they get to the race, so they can able to race 16 hours straight. I mean, I do a race and it's like 12 hours, 10 hours. They're out there 16 hours. I mean, that's a lot more going on. And so for that, we have to look at
that's that legacy. That's that long term. So there's a keep to be recurring theme in what they've accomplished and what we're all trying to get to in our Asea businesses. I like what Trish Schwinkler has always said, that if an apple a day keeps the doctor away, 31 at the end of the month is not going to have the same effect. And so we have to make sure that you pace it out appropriately over time. So I would ask, what are some of the mental things that the two of you did together to support one another, but also to keep on track for this kind of activity, so you looked forward to it instead of being crushed by the concept of being that active over that much time?
One thing is we've had the most beautiful trail to ride on, and we'd always go on a moose hunt.
There's moose out there where we ride, and so we would always say, well, this was a 2 moose ride or a 3 moose ride, and we just had so much just joy to be able to get out there. We would meet and load Marsha's bike because we both lived distance apart. We would come together and then go to the trail together. And it was just a joyful meeting. We would just be chattering away like crazy in the car. And one of the things that you talk about getting sore, we would, before the ride, we would have our Asea and we would do the ride. If it was 100 miles, we might have some during the ride. But after we finished, you take off your bike shoes and your helmet and so forth and get in the car. And then we had to drive, for about an hour, 45 minutes or an hour to where we left Marsha's car. And we would get there and jump out of the car. And a lot of times people are pretty sore after riding 100 miles and then sitting in the car for an hour. But we just jump out and be just chattering away. It brought joy, and we were able to support one another. If one of us was having a bad day, it was sort of a mental therapy session to be able to share with each other, what was happening and how we were doing. And so training with Marsha brought a lot of joy to my life and made it fun every time.
And even though, we only rode together on Wednesdays, but we did have our good old phone and our Garmin watches, and our Garmin watches report to the phone when you've been working out. So I could see, that, Dexter went so many miles on her zero runner or on the treadmill or out. And it's like, oh, crumb, I better get my running, or she's going to say I'm a slacker. So having that accountability with somebody is just huge. Whether you're doing, an Ironman, or you're doing, working up to a mile, walking around your block, or you're building a business, having a partner to do it with that you can be accountable with is just, it's over the top. Makes it like Dexter said, it makes it a joy to reach for those crazy goals, whatever they are. Doing things by yourself can, it's hard to keep that momentum going, and if you have a partner or, 2 or 3 people that are going together, there's always going to be a day that somebody's up and maybe somebody's down, but you can't stay down when your partner's up, and it helps kind of keep it going even, whether you're building a business or doing an Ironman. And there was a question on here: how does a housewife get started working out, or how can this benefit, somebody, just the average person? And I think you have to set your own goal. And we actually, there's a young man, Chris Nickick, who is the first Down syndrome young man to complete an Ironman. And he has a thing that's 1% better. That's their whole thing. They talk about 1% better. And Dexter happened to have some tattoos for this race.
Temporary tattoos.
Yeah, temporary ones. Yeah, that said, 1% better. And so she's like, where do you want to put yours? And I said, well, I want it right on my wrist, right next to my watch where I can see it. And I think his concept of 1% better every day is great too, but it's also 1% smarter. In my particular race, I kind of changed it too. I want to be 1% smarter. I want to run my race. I want to, just kept reminding myself, just be smarter about what I'm doing. And as you're starting to wanting to get fit, maybe you have a goal to improve your own personal fitness. Think about yourself, 1% better or 1% smarter. Maybe you're only, right now you're only going out to the mailbox every day. Maybe, add 1% more and get down to the end of the block. It doesn't have to be an Ironman to start with. And I think as you're taking your Redox, you're going to find that recovery is there. Maybe you're going to spend an hour out in the garden. And if you take your Redox, you're going to find out that the next day you can do an hour in the garden too. But figure out what works for you, combine it with these incredible products. And I think you're going to find that you can reach some of those fitness goals in the next year that you might have for yourself.
On the side, one of our great, amazing double diamonds, Dominguez, came from with a similar age group, but really some tremendous struggles with a lot of stress and physical problems. And she said, I want to get going. So what can I do? And I just said, what I think you ought to do is to start where Marsha kind of did. She got a little book called Couch to 5K and put out in the future doing a 5K run, which is about 3 miles. Now you can take that at the pace that works for you. And by cracky, it wasn't just a few months later that she sent back, and it was just such a joy to see that she had accomplished that 5 mile or that 5K, because she just set her mind to it. Your body is amazingly capable of doing more than you think it is. And Marsha, there was another thing about you. We're going to say something there. I can see it on your face, but also the little acronyms and the little things you learned from somebody like Dexter that had something to do with a smile when you were training.
Smile a mile. So got to give a smile for every mile and make it a joy, like she said. So yeah, that's a great motto, whatever you do, and a smile a mile, and collect those thoughts that you can bring out. There's always something along the road that can give you a little smile.
Well,
That's awesome.
I like to say, just as a coach in both of these ladies, I've started racing with Marsha in some sprint races, and to see the determination of Marsha going to a race and wanting to compete was something that was very inspiring to me, even though I have been racing for years. But to look at Marsha and Jerry and to be able to go to a race and race with these individuals and call them my, not just my Asea family, but also my friends, is more powerful than anything else. And then and Marsha and I have been to races even with Jacob. So to race with the White family, I call it, has been something that's been very inspirational for me over the last 5 or 6 years and stuff. But the other thing I like to say too is, one of the things that athletes become is mentally tough, and not everybody knows that to be an athlete, it takes a lot of mental toughness. There's a lot of different demons you have to overcome and stuff. And I was honestly scared for Dexter this year because of the fact what she was going through. And I still remember getting a call from Marsha to say, have you talked to Dexter? And I said, no. And Marsha told me the news about Dexter's husband, who I knew very well. And I've been on the phone with Dexter many times actually, of her crying because of the loss of her husband. And to know that she's willing to call me and talk to me about that, and Marsha's willing to call me and talk to me about that, it just shows you how this net of family is really together. And it's, Asea brought us together as a family. We never would have found each other if that wouldn't have happened. But to think about that, guys, Dexter just lost her husband a few months ago, and to be able to go out there and race 16 and a half hours and stay mentally focused to finish that race. I mean, it's extremely powerful to be able to sit next to Dexter, and if Marsha was here too. But this is much more than just a Zoom call about Asea athletes. These are two very special ladies, and you guys will never meet anybody like these two individuals in your life, because they're very powerful women, And I would just take a fraction of what they told you and apply that to your life, and you'll be a much better person in your life.
Amen.
That's awesome.
Go ahead, Ann.
Well, I just had a quick comment because I know we're closing up. All the years that I've trained in gyms and one-on-one, to get a workout by utilizing redox signaling molecules, you're just going to go longer, stronger, faster. And for those that are just wanting to get out and start doing it, because I've stayed consistent a lot of years, and I love fitness and I love nutrition. And the neat thing about redox signaling is you can take your molecules 20, 30 minutes before your workout and get your body into fat burning mode. And then if you incorporate, we didn't get to talk a lot about our 4 nutraceuticals, but Life Max is awesome for anybody who's active. And you can take extra. I don't know if y'all take extra before an Ironman, and that's my aspiration is to, I've only done a couple of 5Ks, but I would love to one day when time allows to be in a marathon. And I do love to run. I love to hike. We're getting ready to ski early January. So we're ramping up our Asea, taking extra Renew, taking it with us. We'll have our pouches on the ski slopes. So if you can incorporate, if you're just starting out, make sure you get via source, you get all the absorption of your vitamins, your superfoods, your enzymes. All of those are important when you want to work out. And then, of course, your gut health is important. The omega, you can take extra, especially if you get some inflammation. But I would say Life Max is, if you're a teenager or a senior and you're active, you should be on Life Max. You just don't know how really good it is. If you study it, Maureen Hayes has studied it. Dr. Hoffman has studied it. The nutraceuticals that we have are top notch. So that's what I would recommend as a fitness trainer and nutritionist.
And just real
I'd
quick,
like
close
to-
it out. Go ahead, Dexter.
Well, I just would like to say one thing, as I know we are talking about athletics and working out and training, but I also think that even for the more sedentary people, that this is not their thing. Just being able to play with your grandchildren, to be able to be in the moment and not going, oh, I can't go to, like Marsha went to SeaWorld a few days after the Ironman. Stuff like that is so important in life, to not just be an athlete, but to be a whole rounded person doing whatever brings you joy. If it's taking your grandchildren to SeaWorld and being able to be there with them and not the one sitting on the bench watching, but participating with them. I think it's very important.
Well, life is about stretching and growing. And as long as you're stretching and growing, life improves. But keep in mind, as you begin to stretch and grow from an athletic standpoint or from just a physical movement standpoint, go out and do something. And then improve that 1% per day. Improve that no more than about 10% per week as you're getting started. And if you're over 50, it's probably a good idea to do something and then take a day to do something different and then come back and do that one thing and work with a partner and set some goals together and do a little bit at a time. And the more you accomplish them, you can do this with your rank advancements. You can do it with, let's take a trip around the block. I'll remind you one last thing as a physical therapist that I heard about one time was you've all been to a nursing home once or twice in your lifetime, I would imagine. And it looks like sometimes those are people who are just put into a place to just sort of slowly decline through life. And one particular enthusiastic, was a fitness director or physical therapist or somebody came into that place and started a really interesting experiment and said, what I want to do is I want to try to get this entire group to do 1 mile in a year. Now, some of these people were like, getting them to swallow their pill and breakfast would have been the big deal. And so they got the group together and they did some really crazy things. Like they would say, this person's stuck in bed, and they put a set of pedals on their feet, but they'd bring 3 or 4 people from other rooms in. They'd have people pushing up and down the halls in their wheelchairs. They had little short things that they did. And the weirdest thing, a year later, none of those people were still in that institution. It is remarkable what the human body can do. Don't sell yourself short. Start to grow, start to develop. Thank you all for being a part of this thing called Asea. And I think we need to multiply this. We need to get it out there. Y'all need to watch these shows and look at Shawn Burke's heart and have a heart that big. And this thing will blow up. Thank you all for having us with you tonight. And I'll pass it back to Jim for the closing.
Yeah, thank you guys. And I just want to throw out some hope there, because what we have in this is hope in a bottle. I am an ex-athlete. I played basketball in college and high school, and I blew out my back, and I've had 10 lower back surgeries. I've had 6 levels fused in my lower back. And when I was 58 years old, guys, I had no hope. There's no way I could ever think about doing any kind of anything. I had gained quite a bit of weight, but I had a friend that cared, and he cared enough to share something with me that gave me hope. And so when I started to consume these molecules and allowing my body to do the repair work, a lot of my discomfort, I was on 500 medications. I was taking 500 pills a month on 4 prescriptions. And within 3 months, I was no longer on any medication with my doctor's supervision. So I was able to start doing things slowly. But before, I had no hope. But now I was able to start losing some weight, Dexter. I lost at one time up to 70 pounds. Oh. And it's amazing that when you start, but when you're in so much discomfort and you can't do anything, thinking outside the box was not possible. I had tunnel vision. But because someone shared something with me, it changed my life. And that's why we do these calls. And now we walk almost every day. We're very busy growing our Asea business. We're growing a very large, with Jerry and Marsha and Lee Osler and with Maureen Hayes, we're growing a very large global network of people that care. But the only way we're going to do this is by word of mouth. We share. But there are so many people that are out there that have no hope. They don't have any hope of getting up and doing what an amazing Dexter, you guys and Marsha, Shawn. Yeah. I can't fathom doing what y'all have done. And it's such an inspiration to see that. But guys, no matter where you are in life, we have hope. And we must share this with the world. And guys, we love this. We love you guys. We love this platform. I want to thank everybody for coming. Yeah. Next week, we have Russell Mariani, right leading up into the holiday meal. Well, Russell is our gut health specialist. So please come back and join us right next Friday. We'll be back. Guys, thank you so much. Awesome. This has been an honor. Yeah. Dexter, you want to say anything to close us out, girl?
No, just take your Asea, your nutritionals, and have a wonderful life, just go
Amen.
for it.
That's right.
Amen.
It sounds like
right.
To me, you're supposed to bring your guts with you next week, right?
That's right.
There you go. Yeah, that's right, guys. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, everybody.
See you all later.
Appreciate
Thank you. God
We'll see
bless
you next
everybody.
week.
We're proud of you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.